presents, eh? The presents. Tuia ki te rangi, tuia ki te whenua, a tui ki te nā kau o nā tangata, o ko te mea nui, a ko te aroha, a tihe mauri ora. Karakia mo te timataka, a tukutaka wairua ki riri, kia taumata, a haiari e aku mahi, me taku whai e te reo Māori, a kia mau, kia ita, a kia kore ai i a kōreo, a kia pupuru, kia whakamau ki a tīna, tīna humie, a huie, a tāiki e. A he kuputua tahi, e maku ki te atua, a nānei nei nā mea katoa. E te manuhiri tuarangi, haere mai, haere mai. A haere mai ki te whakanui, e te kārango o tēnei rā, no reira, nau mai, haere mai. A tēnā koutou, i o koutou i tini mati, no reira, haere e nā mate. A haere ki te wā kainga, a haere ki te kainga tuturu, o tō tātou mātua i te rangi. A haere, a haere, a haere. A piti hunu tātou hunu, a rātou te hunu mati ki a rātou, tātou te hunu ora ki te huna ora, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā kātou katoa. To everyone in attendance, and streaming live throughout New Zealand, Aotearoa. And on behalf of the local hapu, te runanga o Ngāti Waiwai, and the iwi, Ngāi Tahu, o Kai Tahu, I would like to welcome you to Mawhera, to Greymouth, and Tētai o Potini, the West Coast. Enjoy your day and make the most of it. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, kia ora mai tātou. How's the singing voices, whānau? All good? You got your waiata with you? Yeah? Te aroha. Let me count you down. Tahi, rua, toru, wha. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi Māori e, tātou e, anō. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi Māori e, tātou e. Nō reira, piti hono, tāta hono, tūna mati ki tūna mati, tūna ora ki tūna ora, tēnā koutou, kia ora mai tātou. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to NetHui 2018 Mawhera Greymouth. Kia ora. I would like now to please ask Venice Tiru to come forward, the Community Manager of Internet New Zealand, to continue on with the day. Enjoy, folks. Kia ora.
Nā mihi nui kia koutou katoa, nau mai haere mai ki tēnei NetHui. Ko Manawatu te awa, ko Ruahini te maunga, no ko India hokutaku whānau, ko Aorawhiria te iwi, ko te hau tumuaki, Ipurangi Aotearoa. Ko Vanessa Diru toku ingoa, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome everyone to NetHui, West Coast. I know most of you haven't maybe had a coffee yet, but if we could have a bit of a cheer for bringing NetHui to the West Coast. Yeah. Woo! It's early in the morning, let's get it up. Woo! A very special thank you to Dave Mason and to our hosts as well today. And I want to acknowledge those in attendance. We've got a couple of mayors in the room, very special people. So I know Mayor Tony from Grey District Council is here. Mayor Gary Howard is coming from Bulla District. And others that are joining us, perhaps you're in the room now or you're coming later on. Tania Gibson, the councillor from Grey District Council. Andrew Robb, the Chair of West Coast Regional Council and TPP Council, Alex Cabrera, so TPP Chief Executive, Renee Rooney, the Chair of Development West Coast, and Chris McKenzie, CEO of Development West Coast. Thank you for being here and joining us today. So we at Internet New Zealand are really keen to promote the Internet's benefits, and we protect its potential for all New Zealanders alongside all of you. Internet New Zealand also supports NetHui in collaboration with the Internet community. So who here uses the Internet? Everyone in the room, everyone on the live stream. So we're here, all of us, to help protect the Internet. And NetHui is about having a discussion and a kōrero around the Internet. So it's a collaborative platform today for all New Zealanders that are interested in the Internet. It's a place where we can learn, share and discuss the future of the Internet and surrounding issues. It began as a 3-day event, an annual hui, back in 2011, and we have now continued NetHui around the country, events right around the motu, including this year in Manawatu, where we were on Friday, today in the West Coast, and next week we'll be in Southland. So 2 years ago, we took NetHui to Rotorua, South Auckland and Nelson. So we are trying to get around the country and make sure that all Internet New Zealanders can be part of these collaborative discussions. Next year we'll be taking NetHui back to Wellington, where our core team, most of us live, and we would be interested to make sure that more of you can come along to that if you're interested in what happens today. So to make these things happen, of course, we've got a whole bunch of great sponsors that help us bring these things, put them together. Platinum sponsors today, Chorus. Do we like Chorus? Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. Gold sponsors, Palmerston North City Council, Tai Portini, Polytech, woo! Venture Southland down in Invercargill as well. Silver sponsors, Facebook, whether you are Facebook users or not, we do need to acknowledge them. Bronze sponsors, Development West Coast, yay! And Netflix. Espresso Cart, those of you that are keen to get a bit of adrenaline in your systems, we've got 200 free cups of coffee being sponsored by Google. So go outside and grab one of those when you can. And scholarship sponsors, APNIC, so they have been helping us get some more diversity into the room today. So we've got resident sponsors as well, Creative Development, who I know are in the room, hooray! Internet Society and Department of Internal Affairs. I know we've got a couple of reps here from DIA as well. Also want to thank all of our community supporters. So these are the people that have been spreading the word, spreading the love around the room probably, and also helping us just in terms of our local engagements and arrangements today. And they are Bulla District Council, EPIC, CEDA, the 2020 Trust, Tuans, Toha Toha, NetSafe, NZ Work Research Institute and Figure New Zealand. I also want to do a quick shout out to Tai Portini, Polytech and Chris McNeil, who have helped sell some of our, or buy some of our tickets to get a few more people here as well. So thank you to them. I'm going to hand over to our policy manager next, the famous Ben Crete. He's often on the news. You'll see him, being on the front page of some of those local regional papers. We are tag teaming today's effort to help host you with the rest of our NetHui team, and Ben's going to walk through the housekeeping in terms of how NetHui runs and why we're here and what we're all going to do. Kia ora, Ben.
Kia ora everybody. Hi, I'm Ben Crete. I'm from Internet New Zealand. So I'm just going to run through the program format today. Just a really quick check. I would say hands up if you've not been to a NetHui before, but has anyone actually been to one? Like a couple, yeah, all right, 3 or 4. Cool, so this is a bit different. So I'm going to run through how it works and also our code of conduct and our kaupapa. So most importantly, NetHui is not a traditional conference. We don't do presentations, There's not big slide decks, and you won't have to sit through 45 minutes of someone talking at you. It's actually about participation. So the majority of today will be in breakout sessions where we will have facilitators. They will not do most of the talking. You will. So it's really important opportunity to get involved, to have your say, to have actual discussions and debates with other people in the room, and talk through the issues that you see and you will have about the internet in New Zealand. We have a NetHui Tui, which is complimentary of Radio New Zealand. Do we have that to play now? No? All right, don't worry about it. Yeah, there we go. So we use the Tui as a timekeeper. So at the last 5 minutes to go at the end of the session, the Tui will turn up, and then again at 2 minutes. And then if everyone's still having a really good discussion and you haven't stopped, it's going to start on the hour and not stop till you're out of the room. And that recording gets pretty raucous. It's pretty happy / angry Tui. Participating on social media for people either in the room or at home, the hashtag is just NetHui. It's pretty easy. There are chat functions in the live streams, so everyone who's watching at home, if you do have questions, do put them in the live streams, put them in the chats. We have people in the rooms who'll be looking at those and be asking questions from the internet. In terms of our kaupapa and our code of conduct, so NetHui is a community event where everyone's opinions are valued and everyone's ideas are equally respected. So we have a respectful, open attitude to others, and that's sort of an expectation of everybody. Our kaupapa has 4 pillars, which are probably the easiest ways to remember how we should be interacting with each other, which are respect people, enable participation, stay on topic, important one for an hour-long conversation, and keep it safe. So we have a full code of conduct, which is on the link on the screens there. If you have any questions or concerns at any point about safety, or you have any kind of questions really, Vanessa and I are wearing tuis. We are the safety team and the TUI team, so come see us if you have any questions throughout the day. And welcome, and let's have a really great time talking about the internet. Okay, I'll hand back over to Vanessa. Thanks. See you all later.
Kia ora, Ben. Thank you. So just some very exciting housekeeping notes. Fire evacuation, please take instructions from the staff that are on site. Make your way to the assembly point on Tanui Street, which is between the trees at the front of the campus. Earthquake, what do? Drop, cover, cold, great. Smoking is not allowed on campus or anywhere near any of the buildings, part of the campus. Bathrooms, if you need to go, make sure you go, and they are on the ground floor, first floor, and off to the atrium next to the conference room, which is where one of the breakout sessions is going to be. We've got internet freely available today. The network is guest user, the password is TPP Wi-Fi, and there's also signs up in the rooms with those codes. Cell phones, obviously we want to keep them on because we want people to tweet and be part of collaborative notes. Obviously, anything else that you need to do, make that happen, but if we could keep those on silent, that would be great. Particularly if your phone call is the same as the TUI call, it could get a bit confusing, so keen to keep those on silent. And if you need a bit of quiet space, all of us have other things that happen in our lives, and we appreciate that. You can go to the student cafe or just hang out in the atrium where we were for registration if you need to take any calls or emails. The program and breakout topic with the room allocations can be seen on the main screen when you walked in by the registration desk. And the team at the registration desk, all Internet New Zealand staff, are happy to help and assist with any questions that you might have. Make sense? Are we all awake? Do we need to ask Google for another coffee? Probably. However, this is one of the sessions where we're not asking you to talk, so it's okay if you're feeling still a little bit sleepy. However, there is one person that is not allowed to go to sleep right now. His name is Patrick Cheffins. He's going to be our keynote speaker today. And we've got a session about Patrick, which is around the Internet of Things. So I'm keen to welcome Patrick, and I've got a wee bit of a bio about him to give you a bit of context around how awesome he is and how much he knows about the Internet of Things. So Patrick has spent the last 12 years working in technology, business strategy and IT services, first in the UK and then in Auckland. He joined Spark 7 years ago and today works in an agile squad that is commercialising Internet of Things solutions running over Spark wireless networks. So IoT is a new field for Patrick, might be a new field for all of you, so we're hoping to learn a bit more from him, and he's got an incredible opportunity to apply his knowledge across many tech disciplines, including from his beginnings and as an electrical engineer. What we do know about Patrick also is we couldn't find much about him on the internet, so he's obviously very well hidden. We can't stalk him very well. So if you do want to stalk him today, he's going to hang out for the rest of the day, and this is what he looks like because he's going to come on stage. Welcome, Patrick. Haere mai.
Welcome, everyone. And thank you for all the introductions. I'm Patrick Cheffins, visiting from Spark up in Auckland. And today I'm going to talk about the Internet of Things, what it is, how it works, and what Spark and our partners are doing to help make it real across New Zealand. And I hope that by the end of the talk, you'll know a little bit more about it and can see where this technology is going and how it's going to impact on our lives. Ben obviously said that we wouldn't have long periods of talking, but you're stuck with me for about the next half hour. I'll try and leave some time for questions as well. Very briefly first, a little bit about me, because otherwise, if you're anything like me, you're going to spend the rest of the next half hour trying to place the accent. Here we go. So yeah. I've been in New Zealand and Spark for about 7 years. These are the places that I've come from, and these are the areas in which I've worked. And I'm really excited to now be working in IoT because it is a field that genuinely brings together a lot of the things I've worked in previously and what I'm passionate about. I've also been to Greymouth once before, about 10 years ago. The Kiwi girlfriend next to me in the Monteith Brewery is now my wife, and now I live in New Zealand. So on the whole, it was a very successful visit. So what is IoT? Hands up who knows what IoT is. Pretty good. IoT really means connecting machines rather than people to the internet. The internet, of course, is a place for information exchange. And if we can connect machines to the internet where they weren't previously connected, they can now send and receive information, and that's very useful. But it's also nothing new. We've had machines on networks for decades. So what has changed? And why and how are there suddenly going to be billions and billions of these things connected? I'm going to pick 3 reasons why that's changing. The first is that it's getting a lot easier. We now have dedicated, specialized wireless network technologies that are designed for machines to communicate once in a while, intermittently with the world. We have new generations of batteries that have amazing capacities and mean that you can leave things out in the field for a long time without needing to go and change them. And we have embedded computers that can do things we couldn't do before. The second thing that's changing is it's getting cheaper, a lot cheaper. If we just pick on Wi-Fi chipsets as an example, previously, if you wanted to put Wi-Fi into a product, a smart fridge or a smart TV or something like that, a Wi-Fi module would cost, probably initially $50, and then it became $10. Now it's $1. So it's not really a big deal to throw that in there. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, I'm simplifying a little bit, but it's significantly cheaper than it used to be. And if, with $1, a dollar added to the bill of materials probably adds, what, $3 or $4 to the retail price. So again, not a huge deal. And the third thing that's really changed, I think this is really significant, is that the internet is no longer just a place for communications and information exchange. With cloud computing, the internet is now also where you can go and get vast amounts of computing power and storage. And so if it's connected, even the most humble device can now make use of those resources. And if it's cheap and easy, why not just do it? Now, a lot of IoT presentations, so I guess quick hands up, who here works in the tech space, the ICT space? A fair number of you. A lot of IoT and similar presentations tend to start with a picture that looks like this one. Who's seen a picture like this one in an IoT presentation or an artificial intelligence presentation or whatever? The fourth industrial revolution, right? Look familiar? Does it look familiar? What about this one? Kind of the same, right? These describe how our world is changing with technologies, including IoT, by trying to reference past shifts in industry. But they also leave a heck of a lot of stuff out. And why is that? I mean, you look at the first one, Industry 1.0, there was 100 years of the age of steam, and then another 100 years of sort of basic mass production, and now 50 years of computers and automation. It's not like nothing happened in between those periods. For example, as an electrical guy, I'll pick on this one. We appear to have skipped over the entire first 50 years of electronics in this picture, completely. A period of amazing innovation. We had radio, long-distance telephones, television, radar, even computers, all done in that period, even before the transistor was invented in 1947. And I think they skipped out a lot of that stuff because, like in the age of steam, a lot of these technologies were sort of shackled or held back because there wasn't the quantum leap that was required to make them more practical or more portable hadn't occurred. Just as an example, here's what happened in the first 15 years of electronic computers. The one on the right is vastly more powerful and a great deal more reliable as well, but it still took up a whole room. It took another innovation in the 60s with the invention of the integrated circuit to actually make that leap forward and actually move into the next sort of industrial revolution. I'll go back one. Does anyone recognize this picture of the treacherous 8? These are guys who worked on the transistor and sort of abandoned the team that were doing that to go and invent the chip. And Gordon Moore, author of Moore's Law, is in the left-hand corner. Amazing historical picture. So back over here, Industry 4.0 is going to be different from the others. It's not going to be characterized by one quantum leap in technology. It's going to be lots and lots of things. It's going to be artificial intelligence, biotechnology, robotics, very high-speed networks, 5G networks, autonomous vehicles. The Internet of Things is only one of these things that's going to sort of blur the physical and digital worlds in Industry 4.0. And these technologies, between them, are going to disrupt or change virtually every industry. So, coming back to what IoT really is. I like to try and keep it simple, if possible, but the tech sector manages to make it complicated. Anyway, let's start with something very simple. Let's start with a fuel tank monitor. You put a gauge on a fuel tank. It connects over a couple of networks to a platform somewhere in the cloud or possibly on a computer somewhere else. And eventually you'll end up with an application on your phone that tells you what your fuel level is. Very useful monitoring solution, particularly if you're far away from your fuel tank, if you're on a farm, for example. You'd want to know how and when the fuel level is changing. Building from there, what's the first thing we could do? Well, the first thing I think is, once you see that this is working well, you'd want to measure more things. You could connect more things. You could have gate sensors that tell you when a gate is open or shut, even when you're far away. Or you could put some soil moisture probes in the ground to find out when things are drying out. So that's quite useful. As a next step, you could start running some data analytics over the top of all that to look at trends, look at how things are changing, get a little bit more insight. And once you've done that, you may find that some of the data that you're collecting actually isn't that interesting, that your soil moisture, for example, hasn't changed. Is that the 2E going off? No? R2D2, right. Okay, great, yeah. Yeah, where they're going, yeah. So a lot of the data that you're collecting may or may not be that interesting. So what could you do about that? Well, you could make your endpoint smarter to say, well, only communicate if something has changed or is interesting. So that's another thing you can do. What comes next? Yeah. You might want to also close the loop and say, well, the soil moisture is low. I want to turn on the tap and water the ground. And that concept of actually closing the loop so that you're not just monitoring, but you're doing something proactive is pretty significant. So it's another feature you can add. You might want to make some decisions about your IoT setup more locally rather than sending the information all the way into the cloud and to the end user. So you might want to put some edge computing very close to where everything's happening, and that's quite easy today with small and expensive computers. Is it still simple? No, it's getting quite complicated now, this is perhaps too simple an example, but what if you wanted to monitor the pump that's providing the water to that soil? You wanted to find out more about how it's behaving, if it's behaving normally. You could do that. You could also build a mathematical model in your cloud, what we call a digital twin, that replicates what that pump is supposed to do, and start comparing what's happening in the real world with that digital world example, and make some decisions based on that. Now, this is a really trivial example of this, and you probably wouldn't actually use it, but in a more complex example, like an aircraft engine, where it's very complex and it needs to work perfectly, having a digital twin somewhere else that you can kind of refer to and compare values is really helpful. And then lastly, we could add some artificial intelligence so that you don't have to have a human involved in making decisions and so forth. So we've gone from a very simple monitoring solution to something really quite complex here. Not really so simple anymore. The good news is that the whole industry is sort of rallying around all of this stuff. Here is a picture from our partner Microsoft of their IoT platform capability in Microsoft Azure. And you'll recognize a lot of things from the previous slide on here. You'll see digital twins, for example. You'll see data analytics, and I really like this terminology around hot, cold, and warm analytics, which refers to analyzing data in real time versus sort of mining data from the past when it gets a bit colder, or looking at time series in the warm. Edge computing, all the stuff that we talked about before is here, possibly except AI. And these guys are not the only ones that have this. All the tech giants have got stuff like this going on. Amazon, Google, and some of the industrial players as well have been developing things that look like this. It does make it a lot more accessible to leverage technologies like this. And the other advantage to this, of course, is that it's been developed at scale globally, and things like security have been very well thought about and taken care of, because that's quite important. So that's what's happening in the platform space. How this is turning up for businesses, and from a market perspective, I've taken a sort of endpoint approach to this. And I've broken down how things are turning up in real life into 3 types of endpoint. The first is the OEM endpoint, where the IoT capability is built into the asset from new. Now, manufacturers are starting to put stuff into their equipment for several reasons. I guess a good example here would be heavy machinery. So people like CAT and Volvo are building IoT smarts directly into their heavy equipment so that it can be monitored and proactively maintained and so forth. And the value driver for doing that really is from the manufacturer. They want to win in market. They want to sell more of these things. They want them to be better. And in some cases, it also opens up new business models for them, where they can start offering, if they know how many run hours are being used on a machine, they can start offering as-a-service models on equipment, rather than selling a machine outright and trying to make money on spare parts. The second group is the retrofit group, and we do a lot of work here, where you're adding smarts to existing assets. You have an older machine and you want to put a tracker on it to find out where it is, find out how many hours it's run, stuff like that. And the value driver here is really on the customer side to try and reduce cost or increase productivity, right? Make sense? And then the last group is the standalone sensors, the ones that are out measuring something in the environment, or dedicated use for the IoT purpose at heart. Now, another value driver that's common to all of them is the data and the insights that you get when stuff is connected. Now, again, a lot of IoT discussion starts at the data and insights, because people think it's very powerful. There's a lot of value trapped in the data. I'm a bit more pragmatic. I like to start with the core, sort of more economic value drivers, like saving time, saving money, or knowing things you didn't know before in the moment, rather than starting from the data and the insight. Certainly, when it comes to IoT that's gone to scale and actually achieving something, those tend to be use cases where the primary drivers have been met, if you like, and the data piece sort of comes second. So what are we doing about IoT at Spark? Well, the tribe and the squad and so forth that I'm part of was referenced at the beginning. We have made this agile transformation at Spark, which really means just organizing ourselves as sort of a flatter organization and teams of cross-functional people to try and get stuff done more quickly. And in the case of IoT, we've brought together a number of sort of otherwise previously disparate IoT activities that were across Spark. We had a little bit going on in consumer, we had a little bit going on in business, we had a little bit going on in Spark Ventures as well. And from July this year, when we went to Agile, we brought it all together into a thing called the Digital Services Tribe, which is the sort of the bigger group. That's our purpose. It's fundamentally about digital services. In reality, IoT is where we're starting with that. And we have 4 squads within the tribe, that's sort of smaller teams that work closely together, that are making IoT real. IoT Connect is really about the networks, which is stuff we've been doing for a long time and continue to do. Smart Solutions is where I sit, and that's about commercializing solutions that run on top of the network, which is something we haven't really done before. Then we have our business development guys who are dedicated to the cause, and Spark Life Products, which is where the consumer activity is happening. And in terms of the networks that we've been building, I mentioned at the beginning that IoT is enabled by specialist network capability. We have 3 sort of key different network technologies that help IoT happen. And having all 3 of them available to everyone is really important, because it means you can do a number of different use cases sort of seamlessly. It means that you can have some devices running on one network and some on another network and still bring the information together. The top one is just our sort of plain 3 and 4G networks that handsets and tablets and so forth connect to. It's also useful for IoT, especially if you want to send a lot of information quickly, but it uses a lot of power and it's a bit more expensive. The bottom one is our low power network. This is a standalone network using a technology called LoRaWAN, and it sends information very slowly. Anyone who's familiar with bit rates will know that that's a very low bit rate. That's kind of old copper modem sort of bit rate. But it doesn't matter, because the key here is that this is a network for keeping in touch very occasionally and using very little power. If you want to leave something in the field for 10 years, it doesn't need to be connecting all the time, because it'll just run the batteries down. And then the middle of those networks is kind of a a slower cut-down version of the 4G network, which makes it a bit more affordable, still quite fast and uses very little power. That's called M1. It's a brand new technology, and we're in the middle of switching it on right now. We're sort of rolling it out now. I mentioned a few things about our network momentum, but the low-speed LoRaWAN network, which is useful for sensors in particular. We have 100 gateways live across the country and quite a lot of the population covered. And the other thing that's clever about that network is that you can put coverage anywhere you want. So although we have macro coverage that we're building, we can add coverage in sort of on the spot where you want to. We have a product called Coverage in a Box, which literally you take it, plug it in, and the area around you will be lit up with some LoRaWAN coverage for you to connect your sensors. Could be useful for a farm or for a depot yard or a campus or something like that. I'll skip over that. Quick overview of some solutions that are actively using our networks and our partners. This is a company called Core TT. Has anyone here heard of them? Core Transport Technologies? Amazing little company in Nelson, 25 people. These guys track these universal loading boxes that go on aircraft for a number of major airlines across the world. They're a big exporter. And a very clever, unique indoor-outdoor tracking solution they've developed. And their readers have Spark SIM cards in them, no matter where they are in the world. I think there's one there are some in Europe, in the US, in some very far-flung places. And it's been amazing to see sort of an NZ export story there. This is our partner, NB Smart Cities. They're doing a lot of interesting stuff in smart street lighting and integrated sort of smart technologies like cameras and environmental sensors and so forth inside the light. The lights are controlled using our LoRaWAN network, and you can actually see the little sort of black top hat above the light there is the controller that does that. So that's something we'll be demonstrating at our 5G showcase in Auckland in November, and we've also pitched it to the city of Dunedin, so fingers crossed on that one, because it's quite cool. Landis & Gyr makes smart electricity meters, very under the radar technology, but really important for the future, and they're trialing our M1 network as we speak. And then here's Levno. Levno is a company in Palmerston North who do fuel monitoring, very much the example that I showed you at the beginning. I've got a little video just to show you what they're doing.
So the rural sector in New Zealand face a number of challenges. One of the big things is fuel on farm, and the number one thing there is between fuel theft as well as running out of fuel. So two really big problems, as well as the ongoing management and monitoring of how much fuel is on farm. Levno's fuel monitoring system allows farmers, our customers, to see exactly what's happening with their fuel inventory management. We're displaying the information to them in a usable way, sending them alerts so that they can safeguard their fuel from theft. For instance, our system can let both the farmer and fuel distributors know via an alert we send to them when their fuel gets to a predetermined point or when their fuel gets low. So Levno's fuel monitoring system is great for fuel security. It safeguards against theft by the alerts we send, but also constant monitoring of the fuel level. So you'll know exactly when fuel is leaving your tank. Levno's partnership with Spark is really important to us. What we're able to do with the new LoRa network is actually provide value to a whole lot more customers. In the rural environment, typically reception is one of the big things holding us back. Now, we've seen a very, very good technology solution that's helping farmers. We've partnered with Spark to extend that coverage and basically allow more and more farmers to use technologies like Levno to increase and enhance their business. We've got great technology, we've got great solutions. The network and Spark is the things that help us deliver them.
So that's an overview of some solutions that are using our networks. What about customers? What about end users who are actually deploying this stuff? Here are some of our very early ones that are doing some work in asset monitoring and tracking. These 3 companies have either done mass rollouts or have started testing and piloting with us devices that can track where their assets are and how they're behaving and so forth. So that's quite exciting. And we're just starting, then here's Cadrona. So Cadrona Ski Field has been a very early adopter as well of our LoRaWAN network to measure all sorts of things. If you think about it, a ski field's actually a great place to measure all kinds of things, whether it's around snowmaking, food, waste, and being a remote place, it's important to have the sort of the dedicated infrastructure in place. And then lastly, we're starting to make some inroads finally in agri-tech, which is very exciting. So I can't share all the detail of what we're up to there, but we're starting to sign business with companies who actually actively want to use things like soil moisture probes and so forth to really gain some more insight into what's happening on farms. So that's the end of the material. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I think I've left plenty of time here for some questions as well. I'm also here till this afternoon as well, so I'm happy to have a chat to anyone about any of this, incidentally. I'll also add that this is the very first time I've done a keynote, so thank you all for bearing with me. Any questions? Here we are. Yeah.
No, because security.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah. We have security in the Internet of Things with Stuxnets and virus was able to the Iranians with their nuclear stuff.
Yeah.
Cyber security or attack. A lot of other governments are looking at that area. How are you countering that as a network provider?
Well, security is a concern. It's a concern for whether you're doing Internet of Things or anything else on the internet, really. Working with companies who know what they're doing and who've tested extensively, I think, makes a difference, and having a plan so that you're prepared. I mean, I mentioned the Microsoft stuff, for example, that will be designed with security from the ground up, and also being prepared so that if something does happen, that you have a plan in place to mitigate it. Because security is no longer about blocking every possible threat. It's about being able to deal with things when they happen as well. And the whole industry is needing to change around that. And I think it's only the start of both the changes in security threats and the changes that the industry are going to need to make to cope with all of that. But it's definitely something to be thinking about.
Can you give us any idea about timeframes for a rollout of LoRaWAN on the West Coast?
I'll be honest. At the moment, in the rollout plan, there isn't a plan for the West Coast for macro rollout, but that doesn't mean you can't have it, because if there's demand, we can put it in, and also we can do both coverage extension and coverage in a box to create coverage where it's necessary, and it's actually surprisingly affordable. It sounds really complicated and expensive. It isn't. Coverage in a box is something the size of a Wi-Fi router, which can give you sort of a 3 to 5K radius of coverage outdoors. So depending on the use case, that might be useful. But definitely have a chat. Yes, that's right. It does need to connect back, but in terms of how you backhaul that, you can do it any number of ways. You can do it on cellular, you could do it on a fixed connection, you could do it on copper. It doesn't really matter because the amount of data is so small. We can do satellite as well, by the way, so you can actually put it anywhere you want.
So if you've got an aggregate of customers, for example, that want to use that technology, get them together, potentially we can approach you on that?
Yep, definitely. Yep.
Hi Patrick, Hadley here from West Coast Regional Council. We're obviously looking with our environmental monitoring to use IoT services at some stage in the future. So we're potentially one of those partners that we'd like to sort of roll it out with. But I noticed a photo on there with beehives and beekeepers. Could you elaborate on how they use the IoT network?
Yep, definitely. So things like hive theft are a problem, or have been a problem in New Zealand on the increase. As long as people are prepared to pay $50 for a jar of honey, this is very valuable stuff, and it's incredible. And one of our partners is a small company in Auckland called Iot Ventures, who co-developed a product called Hive Safe, which basically tags the location of the hive, whether it's sort of been jostled and moved, and then other things that are quite useful to the it's an apiary. What's the name of the person? Apiarist? Apiarist? Yeah. Sorry. Things like the temperature inside the hive as well. And so that uses LoRaWAN from the hive. So you might have several hives in a small area or a large area. Each hive has its own LoRaWAN radio, and then that gets collected by a gateway, either that's part of our macro network or that's been put at the site to get the information back out. It's not the only one, though. There are a number of companies doing beehive stuff because it's such high value and it's so remote, right? It's a great example.
Hi. So Internet of Things means a great proliferation of little, small, $2 devices you stick on things. And over time, you get more and more of these. And you wait 5 years, the protocol's obsolete, the batteries are stuffed, and we make a bit of an environmental mess with all this junk that we're buying. Is Spark looking at how they become a good citizen who's recycling all this stuff that they're participating in creating?
That's a brilliant question, and I'm going to bring it back to the team. My personal perspective, because I don't have an answer prepared for that one. My personal perspective is, let's not buy crap. Okay. If you look on the internet, there are a lot of sensors out there that look great, that promise the Earth, and that cost $2, and often they don't work or they don't last. And Kiwi companies putting this stuff in get frustrated very quickly because they want stuff that works. And so what I would suggest there is choose carefully when you choose devices. Choose with sustainability in mind. Choose devices that are not sealed for life unless they have to be, so the batteries can be replaced and the old batteries disposed of appropriately. Choose stuff, choose stainless steel over plastic, for example. And fortunately, because the industrial world has been doing sensing for a very long time, there's actually a huge back catalog of existing mature sensors that work well. They're more expensive, but they can be adapted to work in an IoT environment. We actually have a partner who does that pretty well too, Sensum in Tauranga. In terms of protocols becoming obsolete and so forth, the LoRaWAN network that we're building is a carrier-grade network. It's going to be around a long time. And the other networks we're using there are cellular-based, and they tend to have quite a long service life as well. And it's all built on 4G, more so than 3G. So that's hopefully going to be around for a good long time.
Speaking of protocols, as Brenda just pointed out, a lot of devices everywhere all over the country.
Yep.
We don't have a lot of V4 internet protocol addresses anymore. I know you guys do. But everyone else doesn't. Are these is your IoT networks V6?
I believe so. I'll get back to you though, Ben. I don't have the detail. That's okay.
Sorry for curveballs. Who else is installing networks? I know that's an unfair question, but you're not the only player. Who else is installing around the place?
So in the cellular world, there are 3 of us, obviously 2 Degrees, Vodafone, and us. Sorry? Yep, Tate as well, for completeness. So all three of us have got some involvement in IoT. I'd say Vodafone's involvement's primarily been using their 2G network in the past, and so whereas we're a little bit more focused on building up our 4G capability. The LoRaWAN network that we're building is on unlicensed spectrum, which means anyone can build a network, and a lot of other people have. I can think of at least two others that are active. There's KotahiNet is one that you might have come across. They're using LoRaWAN, although they're using the Indian spectrum standard. All of them are in the 900s rather than the 400s, but and I can't recall the exact band number of Kotahi, but it's the Indian standard. Maybe it's 868 or something. Anyway, it's so that's been deployed, and then I'm trying to remember the name of their subsidiary, but Census are doing some stuff on LoRaWAN as well. But they won't be the only ones. It's quite possible to build a small private network as well if you want to. Obviously, there are pros and cons to doing that. I think if the infrastructure is already there, it's silly not to use it, right? And then there's the Sig Fox Network, which is another low-power technology that is similar to LoRaWAN. And that's more of a hub-and-spoke business model where it's sort of it's one company that's pushing that out globally. And so that also has its pros and cons.
Last question. Can I have one more?
Of course.
Yeah.
So you mentioned lots of LoRa networks. Are you tied to that network if you go with LoRa, or if you pick LoRa to go into your cool new devices, can you flip networks because you want a cheaper price later?
Oh, okay. So you're talking about changing kind of as a one-off, sort of as a whole, rather than sort of roaming from time to time between the networks. You're talking about, well, I'm with Spark right now, and then I'm going to go to Kotahi, for example. If they're on the same standard, then yes, you can change, absolutely. And even if they're not on the same standard or the same band, sometimes the devices can be changed in software rather than in hardware. Not always. But in principle, yes, there's the lock-in there it is absolutely an open standard, so there's no lock-in. Same as cellular, right? You can change your SIM card. All right, thank you all, and I'll be around later on for more questions as well, obviously. Thank you again.
Before Patrick runs away, because he's going to stay with us all day though, right?
Yep.
Yeah, good. So if you've got any more questions, too scared to catch the mic, don't blame you. Gift for you, Patrick, and if you're able to hang out with us
Absolutely.
for the rest of the day and continue the kōrero of the conversation. So thank you, Patrick. Another round of applause. Anyone on the live stream can put your hands up in the air. Awesome. Okay, so next up, we are going to break into discussion sessions. So this is where you do need to have some energy, and we are expecting people to help out and keep the conversation going. So the first session is going to start at 10 a.m. We are in this room for one of the discussion sessions. So we've got a little bit of setup to do here for a few minutes, and then we will be back on live stream, microphone use, and all of that stuff. The other session is down in the conference room, which is opposite the registration desk, so downstairs. So this room, in the conference room, join us for session 1, Impact of Technology on Education in Isolated Regions and Rural Connectivity. And then we've got morning tea, and then will be another discussion session after that. Anyone got any questions? Anyone lost? Anyone doesn't know where they are? This is NetHui, West Coast. You're here for some kōrero around. So the session downstairs, very good question, is the rural connectivity? No. Other way around. We will let you know in just a moment. And We'll see you soon, live stream. Kia ora.